So, before we get into it, I'm going to just give you a little bit of an introduction of who I am and a little bit about what we do, and then we're going to dive into this. So, today's webinar is on Microsoft updates. I am going to be your torturer for the next hour, and I am going to be talking about the different ways that you can update your systems. I am a senior instructor here at Stormwinds. My name is Will Panic. I have been certified ever since NT 351, a little over almost 30 years. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. During that time, I started as an IT member, worked my way up to an IT admin. Then I became a director, and I teach here at Stormwinds, and I teach the Microsoft and a lot of the security classes. I am a 5-time Microsoft Worldwide MVP winner. This is an award that Microsoft gives out to people who excel in certain parts of the industry, and all 5 of mine were in networking and security. And I am also the same Will Panic that writes all of the Microsoft Cybex books. So if you've read a Cybex book in probably the last 20 years, a little bit longer, there's a good possibility you already know who I am. So welcome to everybody. I am going to be talking about working with Microsoft updates. Now, when you're talking about Microsoft updates, there's a lot of different ways that we can do this. I mean, some applications, I'll give you a perfect example. Office. Office is one of those applications that when you open Office, it can go out and grab its own updates. And it can update the Office application, restart, and you have the most current version of Office. It's built right into the application. So that's one main way that you can do updates. But we have to make sure that all of our end users get all of the new security patches, all the new updates that Microsoft sends out. Now, you may have heard this term before called Patch Tuesday. Microsoft is famous for releasing a lot of their patches on Tuesdays. So when those patches come down, we then have to decide, all right, how are we going to get them out to everybody? Now, one easy way to do this is the old-fashioned way. You just let everybody update their own boxes. But the problem with that is it doesn't always happen. A lot of people don't like running updates. They don't like basically having their system locked up for a couple hours, especially if they haven't done it in a while. So a lot of times, if you allow your users to do their updates, they just don't get done. So then we can actually, in a corporate environment, start adding things to more or less start forcing updates. Things like WSUS and System Center and all kinds of different ways that you can do it. But that even has some limitations, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But those even have some limitations because you're dealing with a corporate network, which means people have to be connected to it when they're actually getting their updates. But then we have the introduction of Azure and Intune. Now, if you are in the cloud, you can have your users automatically update when they actually connect out to the internet. So it's actually a very, very good option. So let's take a look at some of the ways that we currently do it and some of the ways that we're looking at doing it as we move forward. So I kind of broke it up. Now, I actually said on-site updates and Intune. You can actually use Intune updates for on-site. So that one kind of falls in, but primarily for our on-site updates, we use things like Windows Server Update Service, or more commonly WSUS. Then you have, like I said, app updates like Office, and then obviously your manual. Then, if you want to start taking it a little further, we're talking about Windows Update for Business, or better known as the Azure Update Manager. So let's take kind of each one of these and let's talk about the pros and cons so that you understand why, honestly, Intune is probably the best way to go as you're moving forward. So let's start with the Windows SUS box, all right? The Windows Server Update Services. All right, here's the reason why we use components like this. Let's kind of go back and just talk about why we want to put something in. It's built right into the operating systems that the clients will automatically update themselves. But if you have a network let's say here we have our domain. All right, and a domain, as everybody knows, is shown using a triangle. If you have a domain and I have 500 users, the last thing you want is all of your users going out to the internet. Let's just say, we have our router and our internet going out to Microsoft. You're going to have 500 people downloading the exact same downloads. They're all going to be going to the same box. And all that does is it eats up bandwidth. It just eats up your network. It's just unrealistic. So what you can do is you can install a server. And the server is the only one that goes out to Microsoft. It grabs all of the updates that it needs. It brings them back to the WSUS box. And now the advantage is all 500 people just have to connect locally to a server instead of everybody going out on the internet and grabbing the same stuff. But there are more advantages to WSUS. One of the great advantages, one of the things I always loved about WSUS is that when you download those updates, when those updates come back, you don't have to automatically put them out there. You can pause them. You can, on certain updates, deny even installing them. Or you can just approve the updates and push them out to everybody. You have a lot of flexibility on how you want to handle your updates. Now, why do we consider pausing updates? That's a question that I get all the time. When it comes, and I don't care who's deploying. I don't care if you're getting it from Azure. I don't care if you're getting it from WSUS. I don't care if you're manually downloading it. The question I always get is, should I always stay on top of updates as soon as they come out? All right, listen, I've been working in the Microsoft field for almost 35 years. And I can tell you this, I have had more updates that were first released crash my network more than probably anything else I've done. Now, trust me, I've crashed a lot of networks on my own. So I'm not saying that Microsoft's done a lot more, because I've done a lot. But I know literally, I remember NT Service Pack 3. As soon as you loaded it, it crashed. I have an update that a lot of people I've joked around about. I recently did an update to one of my machines that's a dual monitor. After the update, my mouse won't go between the two screens from the update. The point I'm trying to make is, what I like to do as a director is when it comes to certain updates, and you're talking about security patches, you're talking about some, very important updates. Yes, they get pushed out immediately. But not all updates get pushed out immediately, especially when it's updates to products. I had an update in Exchange on Windows Exchange Server 2007 that literally locked up my mailboxes. So the point I'm getting to is I try to wait a little bit on downloading and installing my updates. Now, again, not security patches, not, those types of things, because those are security fixes. But I'm one of those people, I don't believe in just automatically doing an update, getting a new system, getting new operating systems through updates. I want to see everything get into the market first and see what kind of problems we're running into. See if there's any bugs. See if they're getting worked out by Microsoft. I like to just take my time a little bit on a lot of that stuff. But when it comes to certain patches, security, for example, you want to install those immediately. That's the advantage of something like WSUS. With WSUS, you can pick and choose. All right, you can pick and choose which ones you want. All right? Hold on a second. I just saw somebody post something directly to me at Will Panic. Okay, so I was just actually taking a look at one of the comments by Landman, who's been in a lot of my webinars with me. So basically he said, what with nearly everything Microsoft offers rolled into their cumulative packages, it's just how much control for admins do you really have left? That's an excellent question. That's an excellent point. Microsoft has actually started rolling a lot of these updates together. So it makes it very difficult for you to actually break certain parts of the update out if you don't want a certain part. So I completely agree with that. But on the updates where they don't roll everything together, if you have the flexibility to pick and choose which update you want. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to update everything to the most current stuff. I'm just saying on certain updates, I just prefer to wait a little bit. Even if it's only 30 days, just to make sure that everything out in the market is running fine and the update they put out isn't causing issues. I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing Microsoft updates, because I'm not. I mean, their updates are excellent. They do a lot of fixes. But in my career, a lot of their updates haven't really done fixes. They've caused me more problems. So I just got a little bit gun shy to where I would rather just wait a little bit of time. So it's up to you. But eventually I do update all of my boxes with all of the patches. So I just roll them out a little bit slower. And that's one of the reasons why I like the WSUS box. Now, WSUS also, and by the way, Tom actually just posted up an excellent comment. That's also why I also have a test environment. I never, ever roll out my updates without testing them. I think that is a very bad practice. All right. Now, if it's a security patch, I might just throw it out there. But most of their updates, I do the same thing. I like to test them before I put them in. So that's an excellent comment, and I definitely agree with that. All right. WSUS is nice because you can go in and actually specifically pick which applications, which operating systems you want to update. So this is a great way to go. All right. It's still a very good way to go. If you have a lot of on-site users, and maybe you're only using the cloud for certain things, this is a very good option to install on your corporate network. It'll at least keep your on-site side accurate. But, as I said, one of the problems with WSUS is that you always have to be connected to the network. And that's where, in today's day, things have started changing. COVID actually showed a lot of us, that you can work from home, that employees can work from home. And a lot of companies saw the savings, realized, you know what, if we don't have to have as big of an office, we're still going to have an office, but it's not going to be as big, not as many phone lines, so it's a great way to go. But that opened up a whole new challenge of problems for all of us. And through the COVID experiment, a lot of us had to figure these problems out. WSUS was one of those problems because you had to always be connected to the corporate network to get your updates. That's where Azure can solve a lot of your problems, because Azure also has a full update service. All right, it is the Windows updates for business or the Azure Update Manager. Now, the Azure Update Manager is a one-stop shop, a unified service to help you manage all of your updates for all of your machines. Now, the great thing is it's not only just Microsoft. You can update other operating systems through the Azure Update Manager. You can monitor Windows and Linux updates. You can monitor compliances. Now, that's a big thing for a lot of you. Managing compliances is a huge thing because a lot of you work in industries where you have to follow certain government or regulatory compliances. You have to have certain stuff on your machines. There has to be certain protections, certain updates, certain virus protections. All right? ChatGPT said, can I monitor Macs? I don't think anybody can monitor Macs. So, yes, anything Apple devices that get updates from Azure also can be monitored. All right? But, yeah, the main ones, the best reports I've seen and the best stuff I've seen in Azure, basically, though, is focusing on Linux and Windows. Okay? So, yeah, everybody always gets very touchy when we talk about the Macs. So, all right. So Azure Update Manager is a great way to really start rolling your updates out through Intune. Now, here's part of the problem. Intune is not always included with your subscription. So that is something that you're going to have to also think about. Do I want to pay the extra money for Intune? Now, yes, Intune will help you deploy your updates. Now, I would not personally pay for Intune just for updates. Okay? I wouldn't do that. But if you're going to have to use Intune for other things, maybe autopilot, maybe just deploying all your applications, then at that point, I would use the Azure Update Manager. If you literally are just thinking about, okay, should we really pay the extra money for Intune just so we can do updates? You know, that one would be a hard sell for me. As a director, I would have a hard time buying where I'm going to pay extra money when I know I can set up either a WSUS or a System Center to get updates on my local network. So I don't know if I would do it. But if I'm already using Intune and I'm already paying for it, then what do I got to lose? It's a great way to deploy updates through the internet. So the Azure Update Manager allows you to go in and set up your updates, set up how you're going to deploy them. It gives you reporting. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. So it also will tell you how many people have actually gotten their updates. How many total machines have been connecting? How many have done their updates? How many are Windows? How many are Linux? All right. So what else can Intune do? Well, Intune is the, this is a funny question because I was just talking about this. I'm in the middle of teaching an Azure class. All right. And it's a server-based Azure class. And we were just talking about this. All right. So if you actually think about it, there are 3 major components in Windows Cloud. And they're all broken into 3 kind of separate things. You have your Intune, you have your, Azure Active Directory, or just Azure. Now it's Entra. And then you have Office 365. They all have their own portals. They all have their own entry points. They all kind of work independently of each other. But if you want to get the most out of all of them, you have to get a subscription that basically has all 3. So the question's been posed, what does Intune actually do besides just doing updates? Intune is the part of the cloud service where you can do all your deployments. And I'm talking about full operating system deployments. I'm talking about patches, updates, software. If you have a software package that everybody uses, you can put it in Intune and deploy it out to everybody. It is kind of the Azure version of System Center. It's probably a good way to look at it. For any of you that have ever used System Center in-house, where you can deploy and you can configure and you can do all the stuff you want to your machines, that is Intune. It's just a cloud-based version almost of a System Center. But you can do a lot more. All right? There's a lot more you can do. One of the great things about, besides updates, I know this is on updates, but the question was asked, so I just want to, one of the cool things that you can do on Intune, and if any of you haven't done this yet, look into it. All right? I would actually say go out online and do a little research on autopilot. It's probably one of the best things. Oh, sorry. I know that's I'm writing quick. It's a little sloppy. Pilot. Autopilot allows you to actually mass produce and push out complete operating systems to clients. You know all those things that you worry about, like using Ghost or imaging or all those things? You don't have to do any of that anymore. You set up a profile. The user connects to Azure. You don't even have to touch the machine. The machine that's going to do this could be running Windows 10. When they connect to Azure and connect into Autopilot, it will change the operating system if you want to Windows 11, and you as an administrator don't have to touch a single thing. You don't have to touch their box. You don't have to touch anything. So the point that I'm saying is that Intune does a lot more than just updates. Intune is kind of the system center of the cloud, including with operating systems. All right? So, and by the way, someone asked, does Autopilot take up a lot of bandwidth? It doesn't really concern you because most of the time you use Autopilot because you're shipping laptops to users all over the country. They're logging into their local bandwidth. They can do this from home. They can log into their home internet and have everything deployed down to their box. You can deploy onto a guest network, which I wouldn't recommend, but you could. And Autopilot would deploy everything through the guest network. As long as they're connected to the internet, it's going to work. So bandwidth's not really a big deal because they can do it from anywhere. All right. It's an excellent option if you, all right. So Jason says, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused between Intune and Autopilot. Intune is the actual shell. That's kind of the portal that controls all this. Autopilot is part of Intune. Autopilot is an application inside of Intune that allows you to deploy operating systems. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Autopilot is because we're talking about doing updates. Well, one of the ways that you might need to update is you might need to change a Windows 10 to a Windows 11. Yes, it's an operating system update, but again, you can do that update through Autopilot. And you, as the IT person, never have to touch the physical machine. The vendor, let's say you buy the box from Dell, they send the box directly to the end user. They take it out, they plug it in, they turn it on. As soon as it hits the internet, because the vendor gives you what they call the machine ID, and you put that in Azure, okay, you put that in Intune, that box is automatically recognized as part of your network. Automatically. As part of your network. It will connect and automatically grab all the updates before anything else happens. So it will do a full update of the box through Autopilot. So it's another way to do updates, but more people look at it as like operating system updates, that kind of stuff. All right? So, but again, Autopilot is also not included with a normal Azure subscription. Intune is a separate fee, and so is Autopilot and the updates. So just keep that in the back of your mind. All right? So once you decide that you're going to go to Azure, once you decide, okay, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of WSUS and we're going to go to the Azure Update Manager. Well, basically it works the same way almost as System Center or anything else did. You download your updates, you approve which ones you want to send out, and you have a lot of flexibility on, you could do hot patches. Now, I saw somebody asked earlier, why do you want to break up updates? Well, the reason why some of us like to break up updates is because we don't want everything in the patch. For example, a couple of years ago, an update came in, and I was looking at the update. Part of the update was to actually update Edge. Now, that's great if you're using Edge. But if your company is using, Firefox or something other than that, you're probably not going to want the Edge update. If you were able to split that up and take it out, it's just a network traffic you don't have to worry about sending. It's just less stuff you have to worry about your users' machines even trying to figure out, because that patch doesn't need to be there. So that's the reason why a lot of us, if we can, we try to break these we try to break these patches up, because we want to only update what we want to update. We don't want to update what Microsoft is telling us to update. Okay? And listen, for all of you that are talking about Autopilot, real quick, Autopilot is probably one of the best things that you can set up, but it is one of the harder things to set up. Your subscription and the way you set everything up, it has to be proper. I would recommend, as I said, just go on out. Microsoft has a great white paper out online about how to configure Autopilot. It'll take you a little bit of time, but I promise it's going to be worth every second of invested time when it's finished. It works great. All right, it works great. Now, one of the great things about the Update Manager in Azure is that it will also generate all kinds of reports. Now, these reports are excellent. All right, these reports are excellent because you can actually see who's doing their updates. What devices haven't been updated yet? Were there any errors? All right, were there any errors? So the reports can be a great way for you to actually find out. All right, for you to find out, what are my users doing? How are the updates working? Is everybody going out and grabbing their updates? Now, that's also a little bit of an issue because your users are going to have to make the connection. They're going to have to. So you want to make sure that they are logging in, that their boxes are checking in probably once a month, at least, if not more, probably once a week. And they're grabbing all the updates. All right. But the great thing about it is you can go through and see who hasn't updated their systems yet. And if they haven't updated their systems yet, then you can give them a nice little gentle phone call and say, hey, I really need you to go out there and I really need you to make sure you get these patches. For a lot of us, getting updates is kind of just a nice feature. All right, my box, needs to have some security fixes. Not much is going on right now. I'll go out, I'll grab my updates, I'll get my box back to where it needs to be. It's kind of a little bit of like a luxury. Some of us stress to get those updates, some don't. But the problem is, in some companies, you don't have that type of flexibility. If you are in a government compliancy, or you're in some kind of where you have to follow HIPAA, all right, or PCI, or SOX, or any of the government compliancies out there, part of the problem is that also requires that your boxes stay updated. If you're not staying updated, you are not following compliancy. Recently, I was talking to a group of people about hacking, and we were talking about the big Citibank, Capital One, the big Capital One hack. And they were asking me, as an IT person, if your company gets hacked, are you financially responsible? Well, believe it or not, that all boils down to what you've done. When you get a massive hack and the FBI and the government comes in, they're going to look at how everything's set up. If your users are not compliant and they're not following PCI regulations and they don't have all their updates and their boxes aren't fully secure, you're going to be on the hook. At that point, they're going to look at you like saying, you didn't even keep your boxes updated. So obviously, this hack has to be because of what you did. But if they come in and everything is being done perfectly and you just got hacked, they understand it's not your fault. Everybody can get hacked. All right? There's no magic bullet to stop hackers. But they're going to come in and they're going to look. And they're going to look at patches. Because patches include security updates. Security updates that could close up holes so hackers can't get into your network. And if you don't hit those, you could be financially responsible. So updates and patches, yes, for a lot of us, we look at them as either a pain or a luxury. All right, well, they're just go ahead and they're giving us the patches. But if you're in the right industry, it might not be that way. You may have to manually get this stuff done. You might not have that luxury of, we'll do it today or we'll do it tomorrow. All right? So just make sure that you run your reports, you see what users are logging in, which users aren't. And at that point, you can just give them a gentle nudge and say, hey, we have to follow HIPAA or we have to follow this compliancy and you're not updating your box and we are out of compliancy because of you. So that's where reports can be real good. Now, CompuDoc actually said Entra, formerly known as Prince, because they keep changing their names, so that's pretty funny. So make sure that you get your updates set up. Make sure you run your reports. Now, after you set all your updates up, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up how updates are going to be rolled out. And you can set that up in different ways. Now, one of the ways that we do that is we set up what they call rings. Now, I was just talking about this last week, and somebody was having a hard time just kind of visualizing what an update ring is. So I don't know if it was the greatest example, and I'm going to use it again, but I kind of brought up, think of a crime ring. All right, it was the first thing that just popped into my head. All right, so a crime ring, you have a group of people that are all committing the same crimes. They're all working together. That's what an update ring actually is. Except that for crime, it's just an update ring. There are people that you can group together so that they get the same updates at the same time. That's all it is. But what you can do is you can set up policies on your systems so that you can determine what groups of people are going to get what updates and which updates they're going to get. And you can do this all through policies. So what are some of the main policies that we look at when we're setting up updates? Well, the main policies that you can actually set up in Azure and also through GPOs, because this is all part of also GPOs, is you can do an update ring for Windows 10 or later. Update rings are basically a collection of settings that are configured for Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices, and they're normally for a group of devices. All right, like the crime ring, the update ring. And then why do we want to roll out updates in stages? Well, the number one reason is a question that was asked earlier. An excellent question. What about bandwidth? You know, if I got 25 people, and I have a decent internet connection, even though I'm a small company, we have a very good internet connection. If I wanted all 25 people to go out and download updates at the exact same time, it is probably not going to be an issue. If I got 2,500 people in my company, I am not having them all update at the same time. My network's going to be dead in the water. People are going to time out. It's not going to be a good way to go. So what you do is you break your updates up so that usually by departments, maybe sales, marketing, IT, executives, however you have your department set up, and you roll it out through the departments. So normally I would set up an update ring for sales. I would set up an update ring for marketing. So everybody who's part of sales is part of that update ring. So when I push out something to sales, everybody that's part of that ring gets it. All right? Feature updates. Feature updates are setting a policy that you can set up. And what feature updates do is they update devices to a specific version, to a specific feature or version. And then what it happens is the operating system freezes. It stops. It will not do any other updates. When you hit that version, no other updates will be done until you go out and re-update the box. What it allows you to do is it just allows you to lock a box in on a certain version for a certain amount of time. Whatever that time is up to you. So that you can do whatever you want with that box. Now that time could be as small as an hour, a day, a month, or you could say, you know what? I want everybody to use this update for at least the next 3 months. And then when Microsoft puts out their next big rollout, we'll look at upgrading everybody to the next one. So that's what feature updates do. They lock you in on a version and all of those features. And you stay locked in on that version until you run the next feature update. Quality updates. This is a policy that you can set. And what quality updates does, they actually also, this one is also kind of referred to as expedited updates. And the reason it's referred to as expedited updates is because quality updates are updates that you need to get out right now. You don't want to wait. Maybe they're a security patch and you know you have a hole that hackers can get through. Microsoft puts out a security patch. You do not want to wait for that patch to go through the normal process. You don't want to wait until maybe next Tuesday to have everybody on their Patch Tuesdays get it. You want to make sure that this is sent out now. That's what quality updates do. That's why they're called expedited updates, because you need those to go out right this second. And then finally, you have driver updates. All right? Now, with driver updates, you can basically just update and manage drivers. So that's what you would use. It's kind of self-explanatory. All right? Now, Roberta asked a great question. Can you downgrade a version? Okay, well, here's the little secret that a lot of people don't know. The answer is yes. But you got to know what you're doing. But the answer is yes. Anytime you upgrade a box, let's say you go from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and you do it through an update. Most people don't know that you can revert it back. You can remove the update and uninstall the update and go back to the previous version. Now, Microsoft doesn't really tell you this because they don't want you going back to previous versions. Microsoft wants everybody off of Windows 10. I mean, I just told you, I did an update and my mouse doesn't work between my two screens. That happened 4 months ago and it's still not fixed. And I still run every update to see if it's going to be. It's just, it would be better for them if I just go to Windows 11, and then this way they only have to worry about supporting one operating system. So I'm not trying to make it sound mean here, but Microsoft is well known for doing this kind of stuff. But to answer your question, absolutely. If you know what you're doing, you can roll back. You're not going to find a lot on their websites about how to do it, but yes, the answer is yes. All right? It's a great question. All right? And I've done that. I have actually, when Windows 10 first came out, I installed it on a box, and I rolled back to Windows 7 about an hour later. So until Windows 10 was a little bit more stable, I didn't really want to deal with it. So absolutely, you can roll back. Yes. Okay. So, and William actually posted up, but you can only do that for 30 days. All right. Now, listen, people are asking me, what about things like firmware and stuff like that? I can't tell you definitively yes or no on every single thing because it depends on the vendor, depends on how they're doing their firmware updates. But most updates can be removed. They can be rolled back on almost any component. Because here's the problem. We've all run into this. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. How many of us have put in updates that have caused problems? If it's caused a problem, you can't keep it. We got to roll it back. So, yes, most vendors and most updates allow a rollback, but they're not easy to do. And yes, a lot of them do have limitations on time. All right? Because remember, if I load, let's say this box is Windows 10, and I upgrade to Windows 11, all the components of Windows 10 have to remain. Because if I roll it back, it's got to be able to convert it back. That's why they put time limits on. If you don't roll back in a certain period of time, the files get cleaned up. They get archived after 30 days or whatever the update is that you're trying to do, and they disappear. Because all you're doing is eating up hard drive space, and Microsoft doesn't even want that. So if you don't roll back in a certain amount of time, that option's going to probably disappear from you. Because you don't want two full operating systems in the file sitting on a box. All right. Remember, you got to have everything you need so you can roll it back. So you can go through and you can use GPOs and policies so that you can set up your update rings. You can set up your feature updates and lock into a certain version. So you can expedite updates in the event that you need to. And you can do driver updates. Now, if you were just doing regular updates, they weren't like something that needed to be put out right now, you don't care about locking in a version, then the only one you're really going to use is your update rings. Because update rings are basically your normal updates. You just group people together, you send out your updates every week, they download them, and everything just continues to work. So normal updates are just done through the ring. But the other options are there in case you need to lock a system down by freezing it, in case you need to expedite it, or if you have to work with drivers. Okay? All right. So, I want to, before we wrap up today with talking about updates, I want to take a couple minutes and just talk about who we are. For anyone out here who is not a member of Stormwind. Stormwind Studios is a live online training organization. We train on pretty much all computer technologies and a lot of technologies that aren't computer related. We have over 180 virtual instructor-led classes. We have live classes that run every day from instructors. We have video classes, so you can go back and watch them at any time. Now, one of the great things is every one of our classes is recorded, including this webinar. So if you sign up with Stormwinds, you don't have to worry about always making live classes if it doesn't fit your schedule. Because every class is recorded and put in the campus. You can go back at any time. All right? You can go back at any time and watch those classes. And you can even go back and re-watch classes that you've sat through live. In case there's a certain topic. Listen, every single one of us has a topic that's a little bit harder than other topics for us. Something that maybe we just don't do every day. Something we just don't play with every day. So having the ability to go back and watch videos after you've sat through the class is an excellent way to kind of drive some of these points home. And one of the great things that Stormwinds does on our campus is that not only do we put up the videos that happen throughout the classes, the videos are broken into topic. So if you're looking to learn about a specific topic, you don't have to sit there and watch 25 hours of videos. You literally find the topic. Okay, I'm having a little bit of problems with IP. I still don't understand how to do ranging in IP, how to say that this IP address is supposed to be on this line. Well, you know what? I'm going to go watch Will's or Ray's or whoever the instructor is. I'm going to go watch their class on just IP ranging. And the great thing is you don't have to worry about going through hours and hours of videos. You go to the campus, you go to the class, you literally choose the IP that the day it was taught on, and you choose the topic so that you just worry about learning ranges. So it's an excellent way to learn. And the great thing is you always have live instructors in front of you. All right, obviously in the live classes. And we are always available to you. You'll have our emails. You'll be able to talk to us, ask us questions in the class, just like everybody's doing here. You'll be able to post up. You can ask questions during the class, and we'll answer your questions. And we're going to not only make sure that you know how to do your job, we're going to help you get certified if that's the way you want to go. Now, if you would like more information about Stormwinds and who we are and what we do, reach out to Mike at Mike Fajan, all right, Mike.Fajan at stormwindlive.com. You can also get him at 480-339-2731. But if you're not a member at Stormwinds, go out, take a look at our website, take a look at what we offer, and I hope to see you in one of my classes really soon. Listen, everybody, I want to thank all of you for coming out on a Friday afternoon, before a weekend. You're trying to wrap everything up at work. I really do appreciate you taking an hour out of your time to come hang out with me and talk about updates. I am Stormwind Studios instructor and Cybex author William Panic. I hope all of you have an absolutely terrific weekend. Stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you in one of my classes real soon. Thanks for coming out, everybody.